Okay. So today we're doing a Devar Sheyesh Matirin and all its intricacies. Now, let me say the one thing that's important to remember is that it fits into the category of things we've been doing up to now, like uh, Biria or Beria, really, and um, and Devar Chashuv, which are rabbinic strictures on the normal concepts of Isser. And so too is Darash Yesh material. It's also a rabbinic concept. It's not a Torah concept. The Torah says Batal Acharei Ravim Lahatot. So let's start with my source sheet. This time, sometimes I give you Makorot, and I assume you studied them, and I don't do them. But this time, I assume you studied them, but I still want to go over them because I have some interesting things to point out. So let's go to Beitza Daf Gimel Amud Bet. I could bring up my well, you guys all have it. So wait a second. Okay, so I'll start reading. Uh, Now it starts with Meitvei. So we're in the middle of a sugya, but we can't read the whole sugya. We'll just read the part that's relevant to us. Um, Meitvei. Everyone has a Gemara?
Wait, are you are you bringing it up or
No,
are
I don't
you?
think
I'm just asking which way
I
you
don't want to
want
bring it up because yeah.
to. Okay, fine. Give the daf. Give the daf.
Beitza Gimel Amud Bet,
Okay,
or maybe
continue. I'll be right back.
wait a second. You know what I'll do? Does somebody else have the digitals in front of them? I'll You have the printed, Josie. Okay, wait a second. I want to allow sharing. Share. Here we go. Okay. Whoever has the digital one, why don't you go ahead and share it actually with everybody? You Max, do you have the digital in front of you?
Um, I have I have both. I mean, I can pull up the. Do you just want like Surah Hadaf?
No, no, no. Just take my page. It's actually probably good for anybody watching at home.
Oh,
Here. All right. So Max is sharing. Um, okay. So let's start. Meitvei. Echad beitza shenolda b'Shabbos. V'echad beitza shenolda b'Yom Tov. Ein mitatalim oto lo lechasot ba et hakli v'lo l'smoch ba karei hamita. So whether an egg was born on Yom Tov or on Shabbos, you can't use it. It's usser. It's usser to use it. You can't even use it to cover a bottle. Let's say balance at the top of a bottle, or to support a bed. Apparently, if you put the egg in a certain position, it won't crack, and you can support a lot of weight on it. Aval kofin aleha kli bishvil shelo tishaver. But you can put a kli on it so that it doesn't get broken by somebody. So you can put something on, you can protect it. V'sfeika asura. So not only is this beitza asur, also safek if it's a beitza. Safek if it was born on Yom Tov or on Chol. It's also asur. Ve'im nitarev be'elef kulan asurot. And if it mixes with 1,000, they're all forbidden. Now, first of all, is this egg asur d'oraita or d'Rabbanan? In other words, we said it's asur. What's the standard understanding of that?
Oh, would be Derabanan. Good. Oh,
Right. Presumably it's d'Rabbanan. Why? I mean, there is an opinion in the Gemara that says it's d'oraita, but let's
I
start with the
mean,
opinion that it's d'Rabbanan.
I guess Beta Sinolda it would fall under Mukta,
Right. It's
right?
muksa, exactly. If you
And
see
that's
from the language, it says you can't move it.
yeah.
So it sounds like you're talking about muksa. But why isn't it nolad? Why isn't it nolad? And isn't nolad asur d'oraita? Isn't nolad or is
Oh,
nolad d'Rabbanan maybe?
I do not
Joel?
know.
Well, Noah's Durabanan, but it's if we even hold by Noah, right? Doesn't Rabbi Yehuda not hold by it? I can't remember,
Well,
but
first,
this is the whole discussion at the beginning of Beit, like the few dapim before is like, what is the reason that this Beit says is asur, and it's
right.
not so clear. Is it Derabanan or Deraita? There are opinions that
First
think
of
it
all,
is.
but first of all, they also say at one point that the egg was probably formed the day before anyway. That the chicken doesn't form an egg in an
Mm.
instant. It forms the egg over time, and it was actually fully formed the day before. So it's actually not formed on Shabbos. It was formed on Chol, so it's not really nolad even. But it's Asur D'Rabbanan. Let's just stick with it that it's Asur D'Rabbanan because of Muksa, because it's like nolad, or even if it would be nolad, it would be D'Rabbanan. But okay. Then we said Sfeiko Asura, which is sort of weird. We're saying, don't we normally say Safek D'Rabbanan Lahakel? But here we're saying it's a Safek D'Rabbanan, but it's Asur. And then the Gemara says, "Ve'im nitarev be'elef kulan asura." On which, if what joins up with 1,000 is it kulan asura? What are the two possibilities here? How could you read this Gemara? Somebody? Reuven?
Well, one possibility is if it gets mixed in with eggs that do not have that same status.
No, but what gets mixed in with eggs that do not have that same status?
Echad
Which egg?
beta. A which egg? Oh,
Oh, you're saying an egg? An egg that was born on Yom Tov? Right, an
yes.
egg that was born on Yom Tov. That's one shot. What's the other shot? Joel or Lexi? Lexi.
Right. I mean, the question is it just referring back to the Stam Beitza Shenolda, right, B'yantef or B'Shabbos, or is it referring to the most immediate antecedent clause of V'sfeka Asura? Right. So it's the question,
Right,
is it the Safek Beitza Shenolda B'yantef that we're referring to, or is it the Vadai Beitza Shenolda B'yantef
right.
that we're referring to?
So according to the second reading that Lexi points out, it could be that the suffix one, even if the suffix one is with Elif, even so, it's Asr, which is really quite a chumrah. Not only is it suffix Rabbanan, it's also suffix Rabbanan b'tarovet, and it's going to still be Asr, not even b'roshishim, but Elif. Okay, let's go on. Ubish lama l'rava. So I'm just saying there's two ways of reading it, and actually the Bach points out that this the second reading, we'll see the halacha reflects these two readings. Bish lama l'rava da'amar mishum hachana have a sveka d'oraita. So Rava says it's hachana, and that's d'oraita. So therefore, we understand it's suffix d'oraita l'chumra. Our question is, why is the suffix asur? It should be asur suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula. We're not even asking about the second part. We're asking about the first part. Why does it say sveka asura? She says it's d'oraita. The kol sveka d'oraita l'chumra. El Rav Yosef and Rav Yitzchak Damre Mishum Gezerah. If they say the egg is only forbidden because of a Gezerah d'Rabbanan, sveka d'Rabbanani. Because sveka d'Rabbanan l'kula. So it should be not asur. Safek, it should be totally mutter. You forget tarovet. It should be mutter without tarovet. Now it goes on. So this is the answer. Seifa atnan Okay. So how do you read that? Sfeika atnan l'safek treifa. You have to read all four words. Sfeika atnan l'safek treifa. So it means like when it said v'sfeika, it didn't mean a sfeika that it was born on Yom Tov or not, but it meant it was a suffix whether it was a treifa or not. So you sort of have to add in a whole lot of words into the brisa. It's saying Beitza that was born on Yom Tov, it's Aser. And a suffix treifa egg is also Aser, even though it's not written there. So this is quite a forced reading, but the Gemara could do that. I mean, at least who is it that's do that? The first rabbi. Right, Rav Yosef and Rav Yitzhak, they can do that. Okay. Ihachi ema seifa. But then we still have a question. Nitarev be'elef kulan asurot. If the egg mixed up with 1,000, they're all asur. I amars bishlama safek. Yom tov safek hol. Have devar sheyesh lo matirin. So I understand that if you're talking, so wait a second. How does the Gemara read? Before we even understand the rest of the Gemara here, how does the Gemara read it when it says sfeika? When it says nitaref be'elef, it's also batul. It seems clear from the Gemara here that it's talking about the suffix one. It's a combination. It's the suffix, and now if you tell me it's suffix, then I understand that the second part is going on that suffix, and it's saying that suffix that mixed with 1,000 is also usher. And he says, I understand that if it's Yon on Yom Tov, because why? Because suffix hol havi davar sheyesh lo matirin. V'kol davar sheyesh lo matirin afilu be'elef lo bata. Because if it's born on Yom Tov, then it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin, because I can simply wait till Yom Tov is over, and it's a Monday, it's whatever, it's a day after Yom Tov, or it's a day after Shabbos, and now I can eat it in a totally permitted way. So I understand why we're going to be so strict and say that even in 1,000 I can't eat it. But if you tell me it's a suffix treifa, then what's your explanation of why it would not be batel in 1,000? I mean, it should be, because it's not like if I wait 2 or 3 days, I'm going to all of a sudden know that it's not a suffix, that it's not a treifa. It's a suffix treifa. I don't know if it's a treifa or not. Now, the Rishonim say, well, wait a second, you could know, because if an animal lives for a year, then it's not a treifa. So if I would just keep this egg for a year and wait to see if the mother lived, or actually for chickens, it's not a year, I think it's 30 days. So if I just wait for 30 days, if the chicken lives, then I know that it's not a treifa. So some people say, yeah, but that's not called. So you see from this Gemara that that's not called davar sheyesh lo matirin. It has to be something that happens sort of like definitely. It's definitely going to become kosher after a day. Whereas this treifa, it may become kosher, may not. So it's not a fully a davar sheyesh lo matirin, because it's not the heter is not vadai going to come. It could be that we'll find out that this chicken is treif, or we'll find it's not treif. So it's not like the heter is not going to come. So we can already learn from this that one of the criteria of davar sheyesh lo matirin is that it has to be a vadai. It has to be for sure going to become mutter, because that's otherwise you would say by the treifa too. Rabbi Landis.
I have a question. Is this the birth of davar sheyesh lo matirin, of the principle of davar sheyesh lo matirin? Is this where it first comes up? I mean, I'm asking.
Well, I agree with you that the way it's phrased here, it's like everybody knows this rule.
No, it's phrased that way, but I'm asking. Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking. The reason I'm asking is if this is where it's nolad, the principle. If this is where it's born, then you have a need to the sense solve a deraita problem. And we say, there's a special drabanan that works in many ways the same way that a Deraita works. In other words, you understand what I'm saying.
I don't quite see why it's Deraita, because Deraita,
I'm not saying it's Deraita, I'm saying it acts like a Deraita.
Well, look at Rashi. First of all, the first Rashi that I brought, sheyesh lo matirin. What does it mean, yesh lo matirin? Sheyachol le'echol achar yom tov beheter gamur. You could eat it in a full heter way, and why would you rely on bittul if you just wait till Yom Tov's over? And now look at the next Rashi. Va'afilu be'elef lo batel. Why was it not batel and elef? Afal gav demiduraita chad betray batil. Even though from the Torah's perspective, once you have rov, it's mutter. That's it. Gemarnu. Diktiv acharei Rabbi Lahatot. We have a pasuk. Ach mor rabbanon hoil v'yesh lo matir. The rabbis said to be strict since why? Hoil v'yesh lo matir, because it becomes fully mutter la'achar zman after some time. And here's the key line: v'lo yochlenu be'isser al yedei bittul, and don't eat it in its isser state by means of you relying on the principle of bittul. Now, by the way,
if this is the birth, and I'll leave it on in a second. If this is the birth of the principle, then the principle comes in and functions like an Isur D'Oraisa.
All right, I want to go with what you're saying exactly, and I want to say it like this. Normally, we have a Rabbanan where, like let's say it's a Gedera, we're worried, they goes there on a kli that is Eino ben yomo atu kli ben yomo, because they're worried you're going to mix them up. You're worried you're going to mix up an old kli with a new kli, and therefore we forbid all klis. But here, what's the worry? Is there a worry here? It's just saying, don't eat it. We don't rely on the Torah's principle of bittul, and just wait another day. What? It's like frumkeit. It's like, or you could. I mean, that's a bad way of saying it. It's like frumkeit, but you could say it a nice way. You could say it's the rabbis filling in a missing part of the Torah. In other words, the Torah didn't say ever that you can't eat the varshi yesh lo matiri. The rabbi said, you know what? It just seems like it should have said it. The Torah should have said this, because why would you have the laws of bittul if I have another way where I can eat a complete heter? So
sounds to me like we're in agreement.
Yeah. I'm going with what you're saying. I'm saying the rabbis sort of saw a missing part in the Torah,
right?
And they by logic it should have been there, and it isn't there, so they added it.
Okay. Good, thank you. I think that's formulated well, what you're saying.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about that because it's, of course, now, I mean, Birya is different, because Birya, there is a concept of Birya in the Torah. In other words, Birya, the rabbis didn't invent. They just invented that it's not bata. Right? Birya should also be batel, but the concept of Birya exists where the Torah prohibits even a smaller than a kazayit, even if it's a Birya. And even Devar Chashuv is sort of learnt from Birya, if you think about it, because of Birya is Chashuv, so any Devar Chashuv. Okay. Of course, there's also and I think we can learn that out from Rashi, what I said before, because what I said before is that the Rashi says sort of a strange thing. And then he later says, Lo yochlena be'isser. What do you mean, Lo yochlena be'isser? If the Torah says it's batel, it's batel. And therefore it's not isser. But yet Rashi calls it isser. So it seems like he thinks that, well, where did we see earlier when we learned Siman Tzadi Tet? We also saw the idea that even though it's batel, it's still usher. Where did we see that concept? Right, bittul is never fully complete. Where did we see that? We saw that by Choser v'Niyar. Choser v'Niyar says that even though it's batel, if you add another piece, all of a sudden it's not batel. You thought it was batel, it's not really batel. It's still, we recognize it as isser. Wait, did you stop your share? You re-share. I don't see your share anymore. Yeah, okay, there you go. Okay, let's go further. And then there's this Beitza Dal, Amud Aleph. And this is just the end of the sugya. And there, Rav, because we go back and forth, were we talking about a Safek Trefer, a Safek Yom Tov? Anyway, Rav Ashi Amar, Leolam Safek Yom Tov. No, it's for sure Safek Yom Tov is not a Safek Trefer. Again, Leolam Safek Yom Tov, Safek Chol. That's the question. Have a Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. And therefore, it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin. V'kol davar sheyesh lo matirin afilu b'derabanan lo batil. What does he mean afilu b'derabanan? Even if etzem, in other words, we just said that we just said that the davar sheyesh lo matirin is derabanan. So what does he mean afilu derabanan? Rabbi Landis?
Because it's real. Because they're caught between making it like a deraisa and making it like a drabanan.
Right.
The only thing I would add from before is that the narrative, they have a need. I like how you said it, but I'll just say what I have in mind. Just is that they needed an answer in the sugya, and of course it's a crisis that they couldn't come up with an answer, and then they found an answer. I don't know if they really made it up at that moment, but this is where it's born. It's born to us. Right. Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, no, but you just sort of you assumed one step that I just want to specify. Which is what is this derabanan? And this what is this derabanan? We're saying that not that the davar sheyesh lo matirin is derabanan, that the thing about which we're saying davar sheyesh lo matirin itself is an issur derabanan, like muksa. In other words, there's two kinds of issues that are. In other words, we'll see later. For example, what could be an issur deraita that would be davar sheyesh lo matirin potentially? What would be an issur deraita? See, the egg is derabanan, but what's could be an issur deraita that could be a davar sheyesh lo matirin?
Chametz.
Chametz. Okay, yeah. I mean, we could say chametz for Pesach because chametz is asur on Pesach, and then after Pesach, it becomes mutter. But chametz shavar la Pesach is actually asur. So tarovet chametz. Tarovet chametz is mutter after Pesach. Joel wants to say something.
Well, also shavar la Pesach is a derabanan. So me
derabanan. Yeah, but the right could be mutter, but the rabbi, right? So fine. We could say, in fact, that's why. Well, anyway, never mind. But yeah, you could have. Now, that would be an example of something that's deraita asur. And then a davar sheyesh lo matirin, so we're going to say it's a afilu be'elef, and that could theoretically be the reason why Pesach is not batel afilu be'elef, because just wait till after Pesach. Why eat it on Pesach? It's davar sheyesh lo matirin. That's by issur deraita. But this is issur derabanan, and we're treating it like a deraita. That's what Rabbi Linus is saying. That we're treating this derabanan like it's deraita because it's almost as though the klal itself of davar sheyesh lo matirin is deraita, but it's clearly not, according to Rashi. Davar sheyesh lo matirin is derabanan, but it works in a way that even if the issur itself was derabanan, it'll still be asur. Now let's look at this next Mishnah. The next Mishnah we can kind of skip until the final part that I highlighted. The next Mishnah is in Beitza Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. And we're talking about a different topic here. There's a Mishnah there on Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. And you scroll down a little bit more, whoever is sharing. Thank you. So it says, V'ken ha'isha. We're talking about how far you can carry things as far as Tchum Shabbos. V'ken ha'isha sheshayla mechaverta tavlin v'mayim v'melach she asked for all kinds of salts. Spices and salt and water to make bread. She had the flour. Hare elu karagle shtehen. So you know what a Venn diagram is, everybody? It's so the movement of this. How far can you carry this dough on Yom Tov? You can carry it only. You're limited by both people, so therefore it's only the Venn diagram, the intersection of the space that either owner can go. We see that there's two owners: the one who contributed the water and the spices, and one who contributed the flour. So it's going to be doubly limited. It's limited. It can only go wherever both of them can go. Okay, that's the Mishnah. The Gemara then goes on and says an interesting Gemara. Ki salik Rabbi Abba Amar Yehe Rava de Ema Milta de Titkabel. When he was going, where is he going to? He's in Bavel. Where is he going to? To Eretz Israel. To Eretz Israel. He says, let it be that I will say a word that is received. In other words, he wants to say something that the rabbis won't make fun of him, that they'll say, "Oh, thank you for coming." I think he knew that the rabbis in Eretz Israel were very harif. They were, and he wanted to be able to say something that they would like. That was his prayer. That was his best wish, is that he could say a good word of Torah. Rav Yochanan, when he got there, he found Rav Yochanan, the Rabbi Chanina bar Papi, the Rabbi Zera, the Amre, and some say it was Rabbi Avahu, the Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, the Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, the Yatve, the Ka'amre Amai, the Libatil Mayim, the Melach Gabayisa. They said, why is it that you can't carry the dough further? Let it be batel to the dough. The dough, as Rashi says, is nafish, is bigger. Go bittel. And so Amar Lahu Rav Abba. So Rav Abba says, now is my chance to say something that they'll agree to. Hare shenit arva lo kav chitim basara kavin chitim shel chavero. What if you poured in one kav of chitim to your friends, 10 kavim? Now you have 11 kavim of chitim. Yochal hala v'chadi. Would you say that just the one guy gets to eat it? Just the owner of the 10? So what is he saying, in other words? He's saying, there's no bittul here, because it's like, what is it like? I mean, it's like if I had a car and you say, oh, let me give you I'll give you a new air filter for your car. So you're going to say now the air filter is bottled to the car? It's not bottled to the car. Well, it's a bad example, but maybe the point is I contributed some, or it's a better example of a picnic. That's a better example. We're going to have a picnic, and you're going to bring hot dogs and buns, and I'm going to bring ketchup and sauerkraut. So now you're going to say I don't get any. I've got no food because the more important thing is the hot dogs and the buns. So, and I would say it another way. If I want to generalize it, I would say when you're talking about money, there's no such thing as bittul. If we're going to buy a present for, our mother, and I contribute $100 and you contribute only $10, you can't say that the other guy that the son who contributed $10 didn't give his bittul, and therefore it's like only the other guy gave. Both people gave. You don't say bittul by money, which is an interesting principle. There's no bittul by money. That's what he's saying. What's the unfortunate part of my nice explanation? What did the rabbis, did anybody read on? What did the rabbis say to Rabbi Abba? Did they like his thing or did they not like his words? Actually, he says they didn't like his words. They didn't like his words. He was not, it's a good svara. You don't say bittul by money. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. But they say, yeah, maybe by the kavim, maybe by money you don't say it. But this case is different. This case is more like the car filter, the air filter on the car. If I contribute an air filter to your car, we don't go to the Division of All Motor Vehicles and now say that it's a joint ownership of the car. the air filter, even if I retain ownership of the air filter, I didn't give it to you. I just let you. I just put it in your car and said use it. It doesn't make me a part owner of the car. It's bata. Sometimes there's when it's money or wheat in wheat, maybe we do say the ownership splits. But in such a case where you contribute a small thing like just the water, it is bata. Reuven.
I struggled to understand the analogy that Rabbi Abba was making between the Mishnah and the kav and asara kavin case. Is he saying that the woman who borrows the melach and the mayim is like the person who contributes one kav?
No, the woman who donated the mayim and the tavlin is like the person who contributed one kav.
Mu'at. It's okay.
In other words, what he's saying is even though it's mu'at, the water and the spices, you don't say that it's irrelevant. It's certainly relevant. Right. You couldn't have made the dough without it. And therefore, she is a contributor. If you have a potluck dinner, just because I bring something small and you bring something big doesn't mean I can't eat at the potluck dinner. It's not batel. There's no such thing as batel by such a case. So that's why the Mishnah says it's like raglei shneihen. That's a very nice explanation. And the rabbis reject it. But wait, we're not interested in what the rabbis say exactly. Here, let's go to Rashi. Amai, Amai kiraglei shteihen. Why? That was our question. Why is it like the feet of both? Libatel isur tchumin, demayim v'melach dezutre legabe issa denafisha. That's the way I explained it. That the water and the salt is small in comparison to the dough, which is big. You contributed a small part. The flour was the main thing. So it should be batel. That's what the rabbis were asking. Amar lahu Rabbi Abba. So Rabbi Abba said, "Umishum de chelka shel." He's also b'tmiya. You have to read it as a question, as a rhetorical question. Umishum de chelka shel zo mu'at ba yobed shma milikrot al isa zo v'ki mi shenitarev lo v'chulei yochal hala zeh sheharov shelo. Only the one who owns the most of it should eat it. Just because it's small doesn't mean yabed shma milikro al isa. In other words, it doesn't mean you don't get to say that she's a contributor. If we all contributed to the yeshiva donations, we all get listed as contributors. The one who gave less and the one who gave more. You don't say bittul. Okay. So now Tosfos asks on Rashi. Everyone's with us so far? Yeah? Okay. So Tosfos asks on Rashi. V'libatel mayim u'melach gabe issa. So that was the question that the Gemara said. That was the rabbis were saying. Let the water be and the salt be batel. Perish Rashi hoya ve'issa nafishe, because the issa is bigger. That's what Rashi said. Makes sense. But Tema, he says I don't understand Rashi. Fahahavi davar sheyesh lo matirin. Shafilu be'elef lo batil. Wait a second. So why is this? So somebody explain to me, why is this davar sheyesh lo matirin? Josie, you have an idea? Why is this davar sheyesh lo matirin? What's the isser here? What's the isser?
I think Max has got a hand up. So,
all right, Max, what do you say?
Because the issue is tchum, and eventually tchum won't be an issue.
When won't it be an issue?
Yeah, when the Yom Tov ends.
Right. When Yom Tov or Shabbos ends, yeah. So, right, when Shabbos ends or Yom Tov ends, so it won't be tchum. So why don't we just say, what should we say? Don't start moving this dough around. Wait a few hours. Wait till Yom Tov is over and move it then. So that's why it's not batel. That's why it's not batel. Why? And the Gemara didn't even mention that. Actually, really, the question is, I would say almost on the Gemara. Why didn't the Gemara say when the rabbi said Sorry. When the rabbi said, "Why isn't let it be batel?" Why didn't Rav Abba say, or somebody say? Because it's Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matir. And apparently, it was obvious to them that this is not a Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matir. So Tosfos answers, why isn't it? The Yesh Lo Yimar, the Hani Mili, which Hani Mili? These words, if he had said it, then it would have been a bad story because he would have actually said
there's no joke that happens if
there's no joke
if they don't make fun of him.
Okay, that's a literary critique, a literary explanation. But yeah, fine. But Tosfos gives a different answer. He says the Hani Mili. Which Hani Mili? What's Hani Mili?
Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matirin here.
Right, exactly. Hani Mili is Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. The Hani Mili is Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matirin min b'mina. That's only when it's min b'mina. Aval min b'sheino mino. Oh, so now we're getting a limitation on. This is the key limitation that's unique to Dvar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. That it's only b'min b'mina. Aval min b'sheino mino, like our case of flour and water. Aval min b'sheino mino kiacha. Batil shapir. Then we do say batil. So Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, says Tosfos, is only when it's min b'mina. And that's what we're going to see throughout the halacha. And here's where the source of it is. Kiacha batil shapir. It does get batil. V'hachi mefarish behed Yerushalmi. And that's the way the Goren Yerushalmi also explains. V'od. And now, I don't know exactly why he gives v'od, because this v'od is actually totally different explanation as far as I can tell. V'od, the lodami l'shar isuri, it's not like any other isur shahadavar talui betam, that where the isur is talui betam. In other words, I guess he's saying Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is not like other isurim, because other isurim.
I think it's not the Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. I think he's saying here the case of Techumim.
Yeah. That was a new perush I just was giving just now. The way I learned it before is the way you said. I wanted to try a new perush, but fine. Va'od the lodami l'shar isurim, that Tchum is not like other isurim. Davar talui betam, because other isurim are talui betam. Aval hacha isur Tchumim talui b'shem ba'alim. Here, Tchum goes by who's the owner. And ownership goes by who contributes, and there's no bittul by ownership. It's very similar to what Rav Abba was saying, actually. He's saying this goes by ownership, by Shem Bailim, who is registered as the owner. And that we don't have bittul. Ala chefetz is Shem Bailim ala chefetz. Ubekan Shem Baal ha'issa ilavei velo Shem Baal ha'mayim. He says, but here the ownership goes by the Issa and not by the water, even though they contributed. Why? Because it's not like a contribution for a birthday present or a contribution for a picnic. It's like the air filter of the car. He's saying the Baalut stays with the Issa, and the incidental additions of water and salt are truly incidental. They're like giving an air filter to your car. They don't change the ownership of the item. And therefore, it should have, that was the Havamina, that it should have been batel. Afagav the Yav time, even though it gave time, because we don't care about time. Below batel b'shar, Vafagav the Yav time, below batel b'shar surim. And even though the salt actually gives flavor, and if it would be in any other isser, it wouldn't be batel. In other words, he's pointing out that the salt is actually tasted in the bread, and the water is tasted in the bread. So it gives time. So it actually wouldn't be batel even without Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. But here we're not concerned with that. We're concerned with, in other words, the whole concept of bittul here is because of on shem balut. Who is the owner? And that is irrelevant to flavor. Rabbi Abba mahader lahu, and Rabbi Abba's answer was שאין שם בעלת המים והמלח בטל מכאן, כמו שאין שם בעל הקו בטל בעשרה קווים דנפישה. And he says, no, he just argued on them and said, no, it's not like an air filter, it's like a picnic. In other words, he's saying the balut is still there of both of them because he agrees that we're talking about money, but he's saying that each contributed money. Anyway, that second part is not really so relevant. The main part is the idea about min b'mina. Now we just have to wrap it up with this final Tosfot, which which contradicts this previous Tosfot, because the final Gemara in Lamed Tet Amud Aleph, Rav Ashi Amar Mishum Dahave Le Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, v'kol Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin Afilu be'elef lo batel. So the Gemara notice that Gemara was on. Where was it? It was Lamed Chet, right? It was Lamed Chet, and now we're on Lamed Tet. So it's really the end of that same sugya, and we're saying, why isn't it batel? Because it's Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. We call Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin Afilu be'elef lo batel. So that's the final answer. It's not batel because it's Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, not because of the monetary issue, but because, and so actually it sort of changes everything that we're saying. Even though there's a monetary issue here of ownership, we still have a concept of bittul, but we don't have bittul because it's Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. And now let's look at the last Tosfos here. Mishum dahavi Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin v'kol Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin v'chulei. So it's going on this whole piece of Rav Ashi. Ve'im tomar, and if you'll ask, vaha pirisht le'el, I myself explained before earlier, the lo shayit Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin el b'min b'mina. And how can you say this min b'min? This is not min b'mina, it's water and flour. How is it min b'mina? Yesh lo imar de'ein achanami. He says, you know what? You're right. The lo amrinan le ela b'min b'mina. It's true, we only say b'min b'mina. So he sticks to his guns, and what's his answer? V'hache gabe tchumin shani dechmiru ki'ilu have min b'mina ba'alma. By tchumin, they decide, which is a rabbinic law, let's say, well, it's a machloket, but let's say 2,000 meters probably is, everybody agrees it's rabbinic. Sorry, no, the other way around, whatever. So here, for whatever reason, by tchumin, maybe people are mezalzel tchumin, even if it's the people, they want it to be machmir. Ki'ilu have min b'mina, and they treat it like it's min b'mina ba'alma. Kevan de mamanahu. He explains, because it's his money. Because it's money, they decide to treat it like min b'mina. Now he gives another explanation. For all the yesh loymar, kevan da isa eino nalusha, and this is the key one that we want actually. The first is, by the way, it's like this first answer here sort of fits to the previous answer. Right, everyone agrees that 2,000 is rabbinic, but 12,000 exactly. So it's on the 2,000 that we're talking about. So on the 2,000 it's a rabbinic, so therefore could be rabbinic. Anyway, whatever. But that's not the reason here. It's because of Mammon. Anyway, the old yesh lomar, and here's the second answer, which is actually the halachic, relevant to us halachically. Da isa eino nalusha ela al yedei hamayim. You couldn't get dough without having water. Va'kedera nitkana bishvil hatavlin. And the tavlin, I guess the tavlin was, in a different case, was by some other food. It wouldn't be good food without the tavlin. Ve'im kein kishe'arev zeh b'zeh have ki'ilu min echad. Here he's saying a wild idea. He's saying that it is min echad because we look at the final result. And the final result is one thing. It's a dough. And so therefore, flour isn't dough and water isn't dough. But when you put, so what is the min at the end? The min at the end is a new min that is the result of the chemical interaction of those two things. And therefore, they're equally part of the new min. I mean, that's a pretty creative answer. But it's a principle that is brought down in the halacha also. Now, on my source sheet, I have two more sources. Does anyone want to summarize well, Torah Chatat? This is just so fine. We've seen basically the Gemaras that we brought now were just to give us some principles. We saw that min b'mino is where we only say davar she'esh matir b'min b'mino, and we saw that even if it's a suffix d'Rabbanan, we still say davar she'esh matir. It still makes us not batel. And we saw that when things are combined in a certain way, then they become min b'mina, they become one min, then we can call that min b'mina. But we have a more fundamental question, which is what is the explanation for why there is this creation of a halacha called davar she'esh matirin? And Rashi said because it's a thing that you shouldn't eat it be'isser, better to eat it be'heter. Even though really it's a heter to eat it now, but like it seems like it's kind of has some isser quality to it. So the Torah Chatas tries to explain Rashi really. The way I understand the Torah Chatat is it's within Rashi, and he says here, Joel, just read the last line that I underlined in yellow there.
Yeah. Right? So when it's min b'she'eno mino, you mix some, I don't know, I gotta think of a thing now, like an egg into like spaghetti or something. That's not a bad example, but you call it spaghetti, you don't call it the egg, and therefore it's get the name of the spaghetti, and so therefore you're not even like recognizing the davar ha'asur in it.
And therefore, right, it's as though the davar ha'asur is not here anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why Rashi's explanation of ad tochal et zeh be'isser tochal et zeh be'heter, when he said instead of eating it be'isser, eat it be'heter, doesn't apply in eno mino, because it doesn't look like you're eating isser, because it's sort of it's batel in something else, and the thing that you're eating is not that thing. But when it's batel in a bunch of eggs, when you add an egg to an omelet, you'll say, well, I'm eating omelets, so it's from the egg, so it's still here. So it looks worse. It's kind of like for appearance's sake, how it appears. Now, the Ran is a famous other explanation. So look at what I brought here. It's a very long Ran, and I just brought like the key part. Here, Max, why don't you read just the part that's in yellow?
Okay. Lefi shekol davar shehu dameh lechavero eino machlisho mevatlo ela mamido umachaziko. Right. Anything which is barzel b'barzel, things that are alike will strengthen one another.
Will strengthen one another, and therefore what?
And therefore it's not batel.
And therefore, when it's min b'mino, particularly, it's not batel.
Yeah. Do you want to do the other yellow, or
I'm reading it quickly to see if I want.
Well, maybe we should add in that they say, but something that's like a treifa meat with kosher meat is not really min b'mino, the Ran says, because they're different things. So.
Right. In other words, basically the Ran says like this: when do you have bittul? When you have difference. When you have similarity, you don't. Now, there are two kinds of difference. One can be difference in the substance, and then even though it's davar she'esh lo matirin, what's the problem with davar she'esh lo matirin? That since it's ultimately going to become mutter, even now it's kind of mutter. Since it's ultimately tomorrow it's going to be mutter, so you can't call it fully usser. And therefore, if it's the same min and it's really a thing of heter, it's just temporarily usser. It's really a thing of heter, and it's min b'mino. It's so similar to the same min and to the same heter quality. So therefore, there's no bittul because you need contradiction to have bittul. You need there to be opposing armies, opposing forces, and then one overcomes the other. But when they're in the same, when they're both things that are essentially mutter, and they're the same min, then there's no opposition. But when you have something that's still Darash Yesh Material, so it's essentially really mutter, with something else that's mutter, but it's a different min, then you have opposition, and then you can have bittul. So he's sort of laying down this, but this principle is very confusing because when you read this Ran, you're tempted to think he's giving like a Torah explanation because it's like it's very essential to the concept of bittul. But you have to remind yourself this is only rabbinic because in the Torah there's no such thing as this. But he's still saying it's like the rabbi's idea of bittul. Because still from a Torah level, if you have min b'mino, it can be batal. Min b'mino is batal. They're barov, in fact. But why is it batal barov? Because there, even though it's min b'mino, in a regular case of min b'mino, but one is asr and one is mutter, so there's enough difference to create bittul. I guess the Ran is kind of learning this principle out from Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says min b'mino is not batal ever. Even though we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that concept sort of stays alive here, because he's saying, why did Rabbi Yehuda say min b'mino is not batel? Because the bittul couldn't occur, because they're the same min. So he's saying, well, we're going to retain Rabbi Yehuda in this rabbinic law of Devar Sheyesh Lamatirin. Yeah, Lexi.
I mean, yeah, it seems like he essentially portrays, according to this, the Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda's disagreement as everyone agrees that two sort of identical or almost identical substances cannot nullify one another. And the question is just what are the axes on which we are determining whether things are similar? That for Rabbi Yehuda, it seems that he really only cares about the physicality of the thing, right? That he ends up extrapolating from the Dam HaSe'ir and the Dam HaPar to mean that like whenever the physical reality of the thing is the same, they cannot cancel one another out. And he doesn't really care about the axis of sort of ritual status. Whereas the rabbis have two axes, that it's a question of is it similar in its physical reality? Is it similar in its sort of like halachic or ritual reality? And for them, as long as it's fully different in one of those respects, they can cancel each other out. Whereas for Rabbi Yehuda, he thinks that the similarity or difference is only relevant vis-a-vis like the sort of physical status, not the ritual status.
Right. Well said. Well said. But of course, Rabbi Yehuda, I presume that Rabbi Yehuda, when he said min b'mino is not batel, I presume that he's saying that as a Torah law. I presume that, although it's possible that they meant it as rabbinic law. And here we're for sure talking about rabbinic law, at least according to Rashi and according to all the Rishonim.
Well, I think that also part of it might be that, again, for him, if he's only going by the physical things, so he thinks that two things that are physically identical are completely identical. So d'oraita, there is no bitul. Whereas the rabbis, like the min b'mino devar sheyesh lo matirin, you could argue that it's only rabbinically not batel because again it has a slight axis of difference, just not a full one, right? That it is currently usser. It's just that because it'll come to be mutter, it's not different enough in its ritual status to be batelled on a rabbinic level, but it is arguably enough difference to not make it be d'oraita eno batel. Whereas if Rabbi Yehuda thinks the only relevance is it physically the same, then he would say, yeah, it says dam has'ir and dam hapar don't cancel each other out. So it's like a Torah level thing that when the things are identical, they don't cancel each other at all.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, great. Okay. Let's take a break here for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll start look at the tour.
No. It's like Mino. It's Mino l'chumra in this context to ensure that Devar Sheyesh Lamatirin isn't batel, but it doesn't count as Mino l'kula to say that it would be batel chad betray in another context.
As you might have said like in some kind of case where you used treif water, or I don't know, that's bad. Well, treif water that it's actually min b'mino in the dough, and therefore I only need 60 durabanan. I don't need it deraita. and for whatever nafkamina that might have. In other words, right, by min b'mina, you only need 60 to Rabbanan. You need 60, but you need all the Rabbanan. So you might have said that it's really min b'mina also all across the board. He says, no, it's only here that we're calling it min b'mina. Okay, go on, Gimel. I thought it was a sort of funny little taz that one because it's a good point. Like you have to remember. Wait a second, we're not going to say always that it's min b'mina whenever it makes one thing. So it's only for the halacha of davar sheyesh l'matirin. Okay, so Gimel.
כלי שנאסר בבליעת איסור שנתערב באחרים ואינו ניכר, בטל ברוב ואין דנין אותו כדבר שיש לו מתירין. And then the Rama adds, לפי שצריך להוציא עליו הוצאות להגילו וכל כיוצא בזה. So, yeah, if a pot has been rendered usr because it absorbed isser, and then it gets mixed in with a bunch of other pots and you can't recognize which is which, it's batel chad betray. And we don't treat it as davar sheish lo matirin, that even if it's mixed into 1,000 pots, it's not batel, because technically you would say, well, it can become mutter in that you can kasher the pot. But in this scenario,
you don't have to kasher the pot.
Right, and the Rama says that the rationale is because you would need to spend so much money that that doesn't count based off of our previous qualification. We say it either has to be something that is like atid lavo, like mikol panim, or that it's something that could be done without pretty easily and without significant hefset.
We saw that we talked about at Tevel being yes a davar sheyesh material because just to announce that this is Tevel, this is Chulin, and this is Truma, and to separate them, that's not a significant action. But to actually burn a fire and boil water and do Hagala, that's more of an action. So therefore, that's not required of you. So it's a very important halacha. Like if you, for example, have a treifa spoon, if one of your spoons gets treifed up, and then by mistake another person in the house put it in with all the other spoons, you might say, well, kasher them all. So we're saying, no, it's batel. You don't have to kasher them all. I mean, you could.
Nachum, so davar sheish lo matirin, normally we talk about Siman. When you talk about a davar muat in order to change it, but you're basically, because it's bizman and not a pula. So basically what you're saying is like mafresh, to be mafresh is not a pula.
Exactly. It's an amira.
It's a gurnet. It's an
amira. I want to say it's a statement. You just announce this is teva, this is truma, and this is chulin, and you're done. And therefore, that's not called a maaseh.
Okay, to say an amira is not a maaseh is very good. Did you give an example of a minor pula or not? I don't remember. A minor pula. No. Okay.
Well, no.
Okay, so that works. You need an actual pula. Okay. So you have Zaman, not pula, and Amira is not a pula. So it's okay.
Exactly. That's exactly
by the way, I mean, that's a big problem with halacha because Amira a lot of times is a pula. So you have to decide. But here, in terms of how we define a pula, I'm agreeing. How we define a pula here, it works. Okay, good.
Joel.
I think somebody says, and I can't remember who, but on the first day, it would be davar sheish lo matirin, right? If they all get mixed in. Because then, right, it is deoraita asur, and it'll become mutar deoraita the next day.
In other words, on the first day, it's ben yomo.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore...
well, that's also why a lot of the commentators say that you should also wait a day until using any of them, because there's also the concern of if you hold tam kikar deoraita, then if you did end up using one of the pots on that first day and it was the pot that had been ne'asar, then you could end up having actually usr food. Whereas if you wait, as Rav Joel said, if you wait a day, then functionally the food that you eat in any of those pots will be kosher no matter what.
Right. So for both of those reasons, right, you probably, so you're saying it is a davar sheyesh lo matirin, actually, you're saying.
For 24 hours. Yeah.
So you have to say that the shach, that the Rama is the Rama?
Yeah, he said because the Rama says
it's the Rama must be talking about like wait, no, the Shulchan Aruch kli shene'asar b'bliat iser. Maybe he's talking about a kli, an old kli. He's talking about an old kli. The Machaber is talking about an old kli.
Or the Mechaber is a different reason, like it's Isur Balua, and not because it's Isur because of the.
Yeah, right. Well, that's another debate, which I don't know if we'll have time for today, but that's another debate whether you say, and that's actually a major topic I want to talk about, whether Isser Balua is. But let's go on. Let's go on to the Dalit. So, yeah, Joel, I didn't have you read very much, so go ahead. But I think you just read the Hebrew. You don't have to translate.
Yesh mi shomer the lo shayach davar sheyesh l'matrin hecha shemachal mitkalkel. So it's going to give, it's going to spoil, then davar sheyesh l'matrin doesn't apply.
Right. Obviously, that's sort of very obvious.
But
go ahead.
All right. Had the davar sheyesh l'matrin eno batel. Hainu davka. This is the Ramas. I didn't add that in. Had the davar sheyesh l'matrin eno batel. Hainu davka ima isur ba'ayin or sheyesh adayin mamashuta isur batarovet. So it'd have to be able to see it, or it has to have a substance to it still in the mixture. Aval tamo batel, but of course not of course, but maybe of course the tam is batel, and we saw that.
So if you everybody jumps on this if you look at E, we're wondering where to go. Well, there's in Tet in the Shach, he says.
Perush she'ima aval tamo batel. Perush she'ima isur nital misham rak shepalat sham tam. So the isur has been removed, but it has.
Where are you reading? Wait, where are you reading?
I'm reading the Taz. I'm sorry, I'm reading the Taz tet. You said Shach, right? It's
yeah, but don't read it actually. But anyway, fine. Go on.
Okay. I was v'chein batel all the people v'chein im ein isuro machmat atzmo, right, batil. So if it's not in it from itself, but rather it absorbed isur from something else or got isur from something else, it's batel.
In other words, we only are talking about an itzer etzem. In other words, we said this by devar chashuv. When we learned devar chashuv, we said that right. We learned devar chashuv, right?
You did. Well, we did.
Yes.
Kabed. So, which is essentially.
Yeah. So if it absorbed isser, then the isser that it absorbed is not ruile chabed. So we said. So therefore we said it's not called a devar ruile chabed. And the Ramah says the same thing here. If it's not essentially usher, just absorbs something usher, we don't say that the heter will come. And look at Yud in the Shach. He says, "Hakol tafsu al harav b'zeh." Everybody got angry or tafsu. They jumped on him. Basically, they grabbed him. Literally, they grabbed him. But it means everybody got jumped on him. Everybody got up in arms. Hakol tafsu al harav b'zeh kevan the devar sheyesh lo matirin hu. Once it's a devar sheyesh lo matirin, mali baluahu olo. Sof yesh heter leisuro. In other words, what do I care if it's balua or not balua? I'll wait a day and it'll become fully mutter. According to the hesber that we've seen, there's no reason to say that it has to be a iser atzmo, even a balua. And now if you look at the very end of Yud, he says, Ayin Sham, like the 3 lines from the bottom, Va'adarabba, he says. See where it says Adarabba? The end of the Shach. He says, Va'adarabba, Midikatvu aposkim gabe haticha haruya litchabed, shenavla mi iser debatel, mishum de mekoma koma iser, shenivla ba eino rui litchabed. We said over there that the Isser isn't. Mashma, it implies the Bidavar Yesh Lo Matirin, Sof Sofa Isser Yesh Lo Matirin, Lo Batil. He says, actually, you can learn from over there that it's a specific din by Devar Rulet Chabed and not over here. So he doesn't agree with the Ramah. And so too, the Bach didn't agree with the previous thing about the previous mention about Balua. He says, no, balua should be usher also for the same rationale. Why should balua be, right? He said in the previous part of the Ramah, where he says, Oshi mamashut. Well, why do we care if there's mamashut there? Even if it's just tam, it's still, you could wait. So why should we give a heter? And then he goes on, V'lachen, wait, V'lachen haticha shelo, read that.
אף על פי בטל, ולכן חתיכה שלא נמלכה תוך 3 ימים, אף על פי שישרים דמקרה דבר שיש לו מתירים,
so wait a second. There is a concept called, from the Gaonim, they said that if you don't salt within 3 days, then the salting will no longer work. The blood will be absorbed. And you can only do tzliya, but you could do tzliya.
Yeah.
You could do tzliya.
I didn't read that part. Because why is davar sheyesh lo matirin? Because muteret l'tzli. You could roast it instead. And
right. Ho'il muteret l'tzli. You could always tzli it. Afilu hachi.
Tela te'ena surah ela machmat dam habalua ba. Because why it's isur balua? It's according to the Ramah, which he thinks is not davar sheyesh lo matirin, and therefore it's not davar sheyesh lo matirin.
And if you look at Shach Yud Aleph,
but which is on the previous page, right? Yes. Sorry.
He says, I don't know what this klomar is doing there, but he says klomar, and then I don't know why he says that, but then he says va'ikar eino ken delo mikre davar sheyesh lo matir. He's saying klomar. Sorry, he's explaining him that it's not really davar sheyesh lo matirin. Why? Because delo mikre davar sheyesh lo matirin hoyel v'litzli lo nes rameolam. In other words, that's not called davar sheyesh lo matirin because it was never really usher. It was always the food was not really usher. The fact that you can't salt it is just a special din. You can't salt it doesn't work, but the food is never usher. You can always do tzli.
Yeah.
So he says, therefore, it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirin at all. So actually, he agrees with the Ramah here by the blood case.
Oh, I don't know if he does, or he thinks that he's saying what the Ramah is saying.
No, but think about it. Logically, it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirin, so therefore it should be batel. Not for the reasons that the Ramah said, because it's a davar balua, but for a totally different reason, because it's never got started. It never got started.
It never was an
called the davar sheyesh lo matirin.
Yeah. Right. The argument is that it only works if it's able to become mutter for the thing that it's currently usher for. Right. And we're saying here, like, it was always mutter to roast it, and it is now no longer going to ever be mutter without bitul to cook it in a different way.
Right.
You know, it's like a similar, like, different, like, lahavdil, but similar to the concept also that we'll see of, like, it only counts as davar sheyesh lo matirin if it'll be permitted to you. Right, that it's also like it can't be, it could become permitted to some people. It has to be that, like, it's going to become permitted for the thing that it's currently forbidden to consume or use, and for the person who needs to use or consume it.
Well, actually, we're going to talk about this.
Jump off, so
okay, thank you, Joel. Just my last comment, I'll say, but Joel, you can go, which is that by bread that was baked in an oven with meat, we actually say don't eat it with, even though really technically you could eat it with milk. We say, why do that? Just don't eat it that way. And I wonder if we invoke the concept of davar sheyesh lo matirin over there. In other words, why do it in a suffix kind of way? We do invoke that concept.
I'm pretty sure the Rif brings that up.
Yeah, in other words, why do it? Because we sort of extend the concept of davar sheyesh lo matirin. But do it in a mutter way.
But there are people who do push him on it. As I believe it's either the Rif or the Ramban on the Rif, but where they use that, and then other people are like, because it's, I think it's when talking about Recha Milta stuff, I'm trying to remember, but they're like, no, that doesn't count, because again, it's not davar sheyesh lo matirin, is like something that's forbidden that'll come to be permitted, not something that currently has a permitted way of using it and a forbidden way of using it.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we're going to stop here. We didn't quite finish the Ramah. I think Joel will finish it in the Chazara. There's one more topic about things that are Oser and come back, and it actually relates to Hanukkah, which would have been nice if I could have gotten to it, but because it's today the 8th day of the lights, and if you have oil left over, it's is it a davar sheyesh lamatirin because you could wait 355 days till Hanukkah again, and then 357 days, and then light it again? Is it davar sheyesh lamatirin if it spills into something else? And there's a discussion about that, whether it is or isn't. But anyway, you should correct everybody. Next, I'll send out sources for the next Siman. Okay, take care.
Thank you.